Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Gary.
You got to do the motion
Pepcorn.
first.
Preston.
Here.
Strand.
Here.
Mahoney.
Here. We had a motion that's suggested out of the executive session. Can I have that motion, please?
Certainly. Mayor, are we going to do the Pledge of Allegiance?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I thought we had to finish the executive first. John.
Absolutely.
We could start that.
The motion out of executive session is, I move to accept the airport authority's offer regarding the July 1st, 2021 notice to terminate deadline and to amend the MOU with the airport accordingly.
Second. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. I ask you to join us in going to the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Is there a motion to approve the order of agenda?
I so move. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of January 11th, 2021 regular meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1 through 28?
So move.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand.
Yes.
Gary.
Yes.
Pepcorn.
Aye.
Preston.
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. We had the Martin Luther King Awards. Typically, we did it at the Fargo Theater. We're going to change it up this year to try something a little bit different. Commissioner Strands is on the Human Relations Commission, and he will explain this to us a bit.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Today we are celebrating the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and the City of Fargo's Human Relations Commission. Each year, the HRC recognizes an adult, youth, and an organization in our community who leads and advocates and volunteers. I'd like to introduce the Human Relations Commission Chair, Matur Alir, who will help the City Commission recognize 2 individuals and 1 organization today.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Mayor, and all the commissioners. Fargo Human Relations Commission work to promote acceptance, respect for diversity, and discourage all form of discrimination. Since 2002, the HRC has honored individuals and organizations that serve the residents of Fargo, demonstrate a commitment to provide leadership for underrepresented groups, and to make our community more welcoming and respectful for all as modeled by Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. I would like to show the Commission a video highlighting this year's award winners. I am Matur Alier, the Chair of Fargo Human Relations Commission. The City of Fargo Human Relations Commission Martin Luther King Jr. Annual Award recognizes those who promote respect and acceptance for the diversity and help to eliminate discrimination and who embody the work of Martin Luther King Jr. This award recognizes youth, adults, and organizations for their contribution to the City of Fargo in the area of human rights. Congratulations to the 2021 winners, Claire Derby, Nola Storm, and Win Liberia.
We are so happy and overjoyed for this moment. And I want to extend my thanks and appreciation to the one loving people of Fargo, North Dakota for selecting us for this great award. And also this award gave me the opportunity to stand in this gap for all other Black immigrant women and children within the Fargo-Moorhead area.
The whole idea of what Dr. King stood for was equality to be respected as a human being. And I do hope and pray that I have tried to live my life to make sure that that's the case for other people. I think we're hard pressed to live up to his example, but I do think that my faith calls me to at least try to make sure that our community is a place where people can feel safe, can be respected as a human being.
I think thinking about it in terms of climate justice, climate change is a human rights issue. It will affect the most marginalized in our communities the hardest, and also those communities tend to have the least impact on climate change. They have the lowest carbon footprint. What that means for me as someone who comes from a place of privilege is like, how do I utilize my privilege and give voice to the voiceless and make sure that their needs are being met, and that equity is central into our approach of tackling climate change. How do we build back better? How do we have a just transition for our workers? How do we ensure Indigenous sovereignty? All of those things.
We believe that everybody are included and everybody is supposed to be loved. So we work with everybody around the Fargo-Moorhead area, and our goal is to work with the world at large.
You have a place where you can get out, you can meet other people that you'd never meet. I mean, I think of all the people that have met each other at the garden, who've never had that opportunity. And once you know somebody who maybe has a skin color different than you or wears clothing different than you, but you get to know them and you're working together, you build rapport. Even if you can't have a conversation, you start to build a rapport by spending that time together.
Climate change affects every single aspect of our life. Every person has a stake in it. And so I think it's really important to understand where people are coming from and how climate change will impact their lives, and like true solutions to environmental issues is going to be like a cultural shift.
I also think that inclusion is one of the powerful tools that God used to make the world a better place for all humankind. Being included does not mean you just have to have the seat. It means being welcome and loved by the people on the table, but not just being on the table, but for your voice to be heard.
That regardless of your gender or your race or your faith, that your input in your community is as important as the next person's. That your physical presence in a community is as important as anyone else.
Inclusion, I think, is a step beyond diversity. Diversity is having people in the room. Inclusion is about making sure that they're heard and that they're valued. And so, especially as a white person working in these spaces, is making sure that like I'm listening and taking a step back. And so when I say that like I try to give voice to the voiceless and like utilizing my privilege in that way, it's very important that I'm not speaking for these people. And so it's that balancing act, is like how are they included and how do I just create that space for them instead of speaking for them.
Our organizations is here to stay. So we urge the Fargo City Commission and the City of Fargo and everyone in the Moorhead area to actually help empower our work through sustainable and resources that can make us to have a long-term goal and project be implemented. Because we are here to stay, we want to work hard and get to the better place.
That I'm so grateful to how the partnerships in our community has supported us. So grateful for people who have just supported us and stepped in, and then all the volunteers, you know, the core leaders.
I think awareness is the critical thing in Fargo. We have these projects from the City of Fargo, the Diversion Project, the Water Intake Project that will be starting in a couple years. These are climate resiliency problems. We are looking at both increased flooding and increased drought, and so the City of Fargo is being very proactive in addressing these issues now.
And I will leave you people with a word from Martin Luther King that says, we all may have come from different worries of life, but now we are on the same boat. Acceptance is all that we need. We cannot go forward without us being accepted. So the fact that the law for diversity were able to bring us here, let the law for diversity continue to carry us through.
We want to thank again this year's winners of the Human Relations Commission Martin Luther King Jr. Award. Our community is a better place because of Nola's lifelong services to Neo-American. Win Liberia commitment to women's and children's, and Claire's activism in environment, cause, and Black Lives Matter. We are grateful for all the work you do in our community to make it a more welcoming place. The HRC would like to recognize Women Initiative Network Liberia, known as WIN Liberia, for their work in serving the community. The Executive Director, Precious Grab, please accept this award. Congratulations.
Thank you. I stand here today not to apologize for the way I speak. And with that being said, please permit me to greet you all in my local dialect. Fargo me akatuai. Now I can begin by acknowledging the City Manager of Fargo, Major Turn, the City Commissioner, John, and the Human Relations Commissioner, Chair, and its member. It is everyone's dream to be recognized or awarded for the good work that they do. But on the other hand, I strongly believe that it should always be done through hard work, determination, and perseverance. However, not many persons from my ethnic background have been noticed or nominated for the kind of work that they do within our community quite often. And this should be something that I, Precious, should be more grateful for today. Notwithstanding, I would like to take this time to thank God first, the warm, loving people of Fargo-Moorhead, the Human Relations Commission, members of my family, friends within the Fargo-Moorhead area, for believing in the work that we do and for nominating us for this noble award. And to admit, they show to all of us here today that the change for diversity is here. And to maintain this change, we must accept and work with each other, no matter where we're from and who we are by color. And to our community receiving this award, I would like to leave you with this word. To every honor, there is a responsibility and an obligation to keep doing what is right. Thank you, City of Fargo. Thank you for giving us this.
Congratulations, Precious. Nola Storm is being recognized by the HRC for the longevity of her services, volunteer to connect Neo-American with each other and their community through the Growing Together ministry. Congratulations, Nola. May you please accept this award.
Thank you very much. I'm grateful to the City of Fargo because you have, in many ways, helped support what we do with Growing Together. I'm grateful for the Human Relations Commission for this award and my dear buddy, co-founder Jack Wood, for nominating me, even though I kind of got after him for that. But it's vain to think that we can ever truly follow in the footsteps of Dr. King. Very few of us ever have to
ever had to be that brave. And I don't have to be brave to show up at the garden, but I do have to keep an open heart. And I thank you very much for this honor and this award. And I do invite anybody that's interested in being part of a garden to come and join us, because our hearts are open, our space is open, and we're open to make new friends. You're going to find people that you'd never have an opportunity to meet, and you're going to see what an incredible opportunity that is. And then you're also going to take home vegetables, which is amazing. And I just want to tell you that I keep on my refrigerator a quote that was supposedly taken off graffiti from the Berlin Wall, and I truly believe this is true. And it says, "Many small people who in many small places do many small things, but that can alter the face of the world." And I truly believe that that is the truth, that it doesn't take us doing big things to make a difference, but if a lot of us do a few small things, we can make a big change. So I invite you to come and join us and be part of our small thing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Nola. For the Youth Award, the HRC would like to recognize Clara Derby, a recent graduate of MSUM, for her activism in climate and environmental issues and Black Lives Matter. Congratulations to Clara. May you please step up and accept this award.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the City of Fargo and the Human Relations Commission for their recognition of the intersectional violence of climate change and racism. I have to continue working with the city to build a more equitable, resilient, and sustainable society. Most importantly, I'd like to thank my community of comrades for their support, guidance, strength, and bravery, without which this work would be impossible. As we move forward into a new year and a new administration, we must remember that climate change is only accelerating. Treaty rights continue to be violated, and some still do not believe that Black Lives Matter. But by working together and building relationships, we shall overcome.
Thank you and congratulations, and I'll turn it back to the mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burr. Thank you for 3 winners. Very good presentation tonight. I understand that HRC had a lot of nominations for this year's award, and I'd like to thank the people who provided those nominations, the many people and organizations doing great work in our community. It's important to be involved, and these awards honor the diversity of our city. Your work to make Fargo a welcoming and respected community for all, as modeled by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., deserves recognition. I'm proud of all of what you've done for the community, and I thank HRC. This is a different way of doing it. I think it was very nicely done. It was good that we could have a lot of people see this. And I think Commissioner Stanley is regretful that he didn't get the popcorn that they have at the Fargo Theater, huh, John?
True.
John, any other closing comments, or okay?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, we'll go to public hearing. It's item 30. A hearing on a dangerous building located at 717 3rd Avenue North, a continuation from 713 and 111 regular meetings. Bruce Thorelson again to discuss.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'm back up here with the case at 717 3rd Avenue North. You heard everything that we had discussed last meeting, so I won't rehash that to save time, but I will summarize what we've done since that time. Thursday last week, I had a visitor come to my office, Dawn Morgan, and she proposed some funding sources and conduits for this project. That was a good step forward. That was the only communication I'd heard until Thursday. So my deadline to submit the commission was Thursday at noon. I hadn't received any information for a permit or other information toward the project. So I submitted the first motion. It was the same as the last one. And then you will see a second alternate motion that I've come up with since that time. Don Morgan will be representing the Fargo-Moorhead Heritage Society. And they're stepping up to offer this funding mechanism. And it is my hope that that will alleviate issues that we saw that wasn't being taken care of at the time. There's another a player involved, Plains Architecture, that has a board that's working with the Fargo-Moorhead Heritage Society on the funding. Owner Ron Ramsey is still the owner of the project and involved. I believe he's here today. Kilburn Group is still involved, and they have recommitted as project management and funds toward the project and working with the Heritage Society with that funding. I was really struggling to think of what the missing link was, why the project didn't get done over the last 6-7 months. And I reviewed all my notes, and what I came up with is a contractor. We have funding sources, we have project management. We didn't really have a commitment for that big link in between. And that is what we saw over the last 6 months. For the work not really getting completed in the 6 months. Don brought historic information to me, which I had not seen in the past. I reviewed that in my discussion with her and Nicole from the planning department. I do not believe that affects what they're doing. But if certain things happen to the building, such as a final use for this building, it will have an impact because we have codes and historic buildings are listed in there. This building is a contributing factor to that historic district. So we will look at that. And usually the codes only really give some exemptions, but they still make sure that the building is safe in the end. So I'll leave the floor for the owners and their reps. You've seen the two motions. I will accept either one. And I'll yield the floor now to the owner.
Public discussion. Don, do you want to speak?
Mayor and Commissioners, glad to be here. It's been a whirlwind this last week. I contacted the Fargo-Moorhead Heritage Society Board of Directors on Wednesday because the day before it had come to me that in the problems with this building, one that I've admired since I was a teenager, that I was just hoping something would happen and it hadn't. So then the light bulb went on and I thought Fargo-Moorhead Heritage Society has been looking for something like this forever. And so in speaking with the board, they said this is perfect. It was unanimous in approval of our moving forward. We offered, since we're an architectural preservation organization, we offered, and we have a 501c3, this federal tax status for making tax deductible donations. We offered to enter into this project as a partner and act as the fiscal agent. And so that enabled some other things to happen with funders who weren't able to make donations without that 501c3 status. I'll let Ron talk to you about Plains Architecture and their attempts to gain this status, but the Fargo-Moorhead Heritage Society will act as the fiscal agent until that time. I did put some reservations into how long that would be, but there have been some guidelines put forth by inspections as to when we need to look at this project again. So if there's anybody, Ron, if you would like to say something representing Prairie Architecture, there may be one or more people here from the Heritage Society that would like to say a word or two. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Good work.
Hi, I'm Ron Ramsey. As a mechanism for preserving the building, I created a nonprofit foundation registered in Bismarck, and we're currently applying for 501c3 status. I think it's delayed because of the COVID pandemic, delayed longer than it probably normally would. I asked 5 people that I know and who I trust to be on the board of that organization. 2 of them are Fargo residents, one a Moorhead resident, one from Minneapolis, and a friend of mine from Connecticut. They all know me. They know my intentions for the building in general terms, and I know you're interested in those. I would like to thank a few people along the way, certainly Dawn and the board members of the Fargo Heritage Society, the 5 friends who have agreed to serve on a Plains Architecture Board and to accept the property when we have the 501c3 status. Adam Martin, who one Sunday afternoon appeared with 11 other volunteers and scraped and painted for the better part of 5 hours and put us well ahead of where we thought we would be. My carpenter, Chris Nelson, who is from Grand Forks and makes the trek down here every day to try and address the inspection department's list of issues, and I think in many of them we are certainly ready for a final inspection, which we think we can pass, I wouldn't say easily, but certainly to meet their expectations and hopefully exceed them. In terms of the future, I would say that I have seen our location. Well, first of all, the day after the last commission meeting, I received a Lifetime Achievement Award, which is always kind of scary because it presumes that your life is almost over, from the Downtown Community Partnership. And I have been a promoter of downtown, especially as a place to live, since I moved there in 1980, when downtown property was on the way down rather than having made the turn that it has in recent years. It seems to me that the house is strategically located to partner not only with Fargo Heritage, but also with other cultural institutions, including the Plains Art Museum, the Rourke Art Museum, NDSU, our new academic unit, the School of Design, Architecture, and Art. We have set up as an independent academic unit now, no longer a part of any college. We have art and architecture and landscape programs, and certainly student use of the building as a vehicle for, as a place, I should say, a venue for seminars. We are a block from Cly Hall. We are also a block from the sanctuary. And I think that as a center for a focus on not only preservation, but particularly downtown investment and preservation, we're situated very well to do those things. I regret not having thought of, Dawn's been a friend of mine for 40 years, and I regret not having thought about Fargo Heritage as a partner in this, and we're very grateful that they've stepped up and made that offer. They currently operate, I presume, out of a post office box and a banker's box full of correspondence in somebody's garage. That is one more use that the building can certainly be put to. In the immediate future, I have a couple of important projects for myself to complete. I'm still teaching, and I will probably have to keep teaching just to keep this project alive. I just had my 76th birthday last Sunday, and I'm probably going to shoot for 80. I think I'll have to. But I do have a significant library of more than 15,000 books, an art collection of probably in excess of 2,000 pieces, and I would say somewhere between 60 and 80 banker's boxes of research material that will be going to the Institute for Regional Studies.
Mr. Mayor, I think we're a little off topic. Can we get back to?
Ron, I appreciate that. We just want to know, is there's a second amendment that Bruce Tarleson has suggested? Are you okay with that? Okay, we enjoy all your dialogue, but the meeting's going to go long tonight. So is there anybody else who wants to speak to this issue? come on up.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We don't have the 2.5-minute timer, but I'd ask you to try to keep your comments to less than 3
I will
minutes,
do that,
please.
sir.
Thank you.
Thank you for giving me this moment, Mayor and Commission. I just wanted to come and show my support. I am on the Fargo-Moorhead Heritage Society board as the vice president, and I really believe this is a step in the right direction. Our society has been looking to reorganize, and I think one of the things that we really wanted was a brick and mortar place for the society, and this is a perfect plan and partnership for these two organizations. And I think it is also a good place for awareness of historical buildings in our city. And I just want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Nathan Larson. I'm also on the board of the Heritage Society. Just wanted to speak a little about the enthusiasm that has gone through the board with the idea of being able to partner with Plains Architecture on the preservation of this building and future educational opportunities ahead. It really speaks to the purpose of our organization. And another hat that I wear, I also serve, I sit on the Historic Preservation Commission with the city. And this would absolutely have my support, and it's the kind of project that we'd like to see come forward with the Preservation Commission as well. So I would, being within the zone, it requires our approval, and that's something that I wouldn't anticipate being an issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wish to speak to this issue?
Just a quick word. It's not only an important building to Fargo. I've had people come into the store. The first time I was aware of the BB building was architecture professor from Pennsylvania came into the store asking me how to find it. And I didn't know where it was, but together we found it. She was thrilled. She knew the whole history of the thing. And since then, I've had other people coming in asking how to find it, and have been able to show them how to find it. And just wanted to, in my last 30 years in Fargo, one of the first books I picked up was Ron Ramsey's book about architectural and historical significant buildings in Fargo. It's still a treasure, and Ron has done a lot for our community, and I hope you will back him on this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Anybody else? We'll close public hearings. Do I have a motion?
I so move.
The second motion or the
which
first?
one?
I move the alternative recommended motion that was modified and presented today.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Commissioner Preston.
So, Mr. Ramsey, these timeframes are going to fit for you. Can you commit to those timeframes? And the second question would be the Heritage Society's involvement. You're agreeing to them doing the fundraising, is that right? I'm sorry, can't hear you.
I apologize, I've got a sinus infection and my ear is not working very well. To act as our fiscal agent, or in a more hands-on?
Are they, and perhaps I'm misunderstanding, but I understood that they will seek some funding through foundations perhaps to help in this building renovation?
Yes.
And you're agreeing to that? You're good with it?
Yes.
Okay.
I've discussed it with our board, and
Okay.
they agree that a partnership with not only Fargo Heritage, but with perhaps the FM Area Architects Group and other similar professional organizations connected with design could certainly use it as a place to meet.
Okay, then my other question was,
Excuse me, Commissioner Preston. On Don Morgan's letter, it says the Fargo-Moorhead Heritage Society will not engage in fundraising for this project. It will
Oh, no,
only
pardon
act
me,
as a fiscal agent.
The fundraising is my responsibility.
okay, sorry about that. Okay, so just as a fiscal agent. So my other question was, can you agree to the timeline that the Inspections Department has laid out here?
Yes, I think we can achieve exactly what they're asking for within the 180 days. We've been, I know we have perhaps a longer building season now with the temperatures being modified, but I think we should be able to get in the ground with a foundation fairly soon. I still have to find, with Heather's help and Kilborn Group, to ferret out the right person to do it. Construction around Fargo-Moorhead has been so aggressive, it's very difficult to find people.
Can I ask one more question? And this one is for somebody from the Heritage Society. So your involvement is truly just fiscal management, as I had understood this enthusiasm about this project, but is it just fiscal management? Is that what you're understanding?
The status that we have is a 501c3. That means that we can act as a fiscal agent for a project. There are entities that have committed funds to the project that haven't been able to be received because the Plains architecture does not have 501c3 status.
Right.
So what the Heritage Society would do in this case is receive funds and then disperse them as portions of the project are completed. So we would also receive bills, statements, and pay them out.
Okay.
And so we have agreed to the extended period of time, which I think Bruce said first 180 days and then an additional 365. Is that right?
Yes, for the final completion, for what the building is intended to be used for. Yes.
Yes, and since we're a historic preservation organization and we love the building, we would like to partner ultimately with Plains Architecture for programming.
Okay.
So we might be able to, at some point, to have a partnership there, but that's not something that's been worked out right now.
Okay.
So, yeah, so we want to just get through this part of it. And then I think really next significantly is what Plains Architecture wants to do with the building.
Commissioner Pepcorn.
So, Mr. Chair, I just have a couple questions for Bruce. And so then in 180 days, then maybe you can just put this in the reminder that you can update us on this, on how the permits are going. And also, my question to you is, do you feel this is going to perform like we hope it is? Are you optimistic?
I am optimistic. That's the word I would use. I feel that the first 180 to get the building exterior compliant, the shell, and any engineering that's required to get completed, that also gives them 6 months to discuss the use, the future use of the property, and then to acquire a permit for that next 1 year process to make that happen. I feel the 1.5 years is good enough time frame. I've heard from the group that it may not be, but I feel it is. We've had a great construction season. The weather is good. There's work all over town. He is correct. It is sometimes difficult to get contractors, but I think he's working with a great group of people, and I think they can make it happen.
Commissioner Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. Initially, I'd like to thank our inspections department, all of you in your department, Bruce, and you in particular. I know you worked on this all weekend. You spent hours and hours and hours working on this. And part of the dilemma I think that we faced that we can learn from going forward is we've all asked our inspections department, we've expected it and demanded it, that we step up our inspections and actions, and we commend you and your department for that. And the community receives that well and wants that. So initially, that's important. But we didn't quite anticipate what would happen if we run into a historic building in distress. So my suggestion is getting through this phase as we look at our policies and make sure that we have a consideration for any future historic buildings that may surface in our in our processes. And then we have ways forward, which would include Historic Preservation Commission and so on. But thank you very sincerely. This building would not be saved if our department didn't work their continuous hours tirelessly to try meet the community hopes to preserve this building that absolutely was in trouble and deserved your attention. So thank you, and I want to thank the Heritage Society, Don, and your board and your leadership for stepping up, for seeing a vision, for helping fill some gaps, and helping answer the questions that we commissioners absolutely have. Lastly, the Kilbourne Group's expertise and resources, Mike Almendinger and Heather, and your teams and your volunteer pro bono work that's well over 100 hours and not done. And your passion too. You were working on this weekend, and you don't have to, but you're doing it because of heart. So we really got through a critical phase, Ron Ramsey as the owner, years ago, protecting this building. I know where we're at, but you acknowledged for all of us the historic relevance of this building and Milton Beebe as an architect. And your role will live on for a long time with this project when it's done. So it's great news that we're not voting tonight, I hope, to demolish a historic property.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Strand,
Yes.
Gary,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Preston,
Aye.
Mahoney,
Aye. Item 30B, public comment period for the Community Development Block Grant and the
Thank
Home
you.
Program 2020 to 2024 Consolidated Plan, including the 2020 Action Plan and Budget. Do you have Bassett to talk about? No Nicole tonight, all by yourself?
She's back there. Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. This evening, I am presenting holding a public hearing that falls under 30B of your agenda. And following this hearing, we are seeking approval to submit the city's 5-year and 2020 plans to HUD. So here's a timeline of the process that we've been following. We've been conducting public outreach and seeking input since the fall of 2019, including a proposal and application process this fall. So our initial timeline was interrupted by the pandemic, like many other things have been, but we're still ahead of HUD's revised schedule. They pushed out the final due date to August 16th, so we're doing good. And today is the last day of that public hearing, so it's been, public comment period. It's been running since the 14th. And to date, we have received no public comments on the draft plans that have been posted on our website. So here I just kind of want to outline what the 5-year HUD plan goals and priorities are that we found through that public outreach process. These rose to the top with all of the needs that we did here. So affordable rental and homeownership housing development is pretty significant, as well as preventing and ending homelessness, including diversion efforts and sheltering, neighborhood improvements and initiatives, including capital improvements and programming for neighborhoods, and assistance for vulnerable populations. We did hear a lot about that too, such as programming for people who are elderly, disabled, homeless, victims of domestic violence, people struggling with substance abuse, mental wellness, and so forth. And also youth programming too. This is just a quick slide of the overall budget that we have for the 5-year and for the 2020. So you'll see that the categories are broken down by the 2 programs that the planning department has outlined in this 5-year plan, and that is community development block grant funds and our home investment partnership funds, which cover any housing related activities. We generally get quite a bit more in community development block grant funds, but you'll see we have estimated about $4.2 million in funds for CDBG funds over the next 5 years, and $3.2 million in funds for the Home Investment Partnership Program. So for 2020 alone, we have just about 1.5 million that we're looking at, and this slide outlines how staff is proposing the funding is spent. And of course, this is following that proposal process that we did back in September of this year. So we ended up getting 31 applications back, and we prioritized those applications based on COVID response to basic needs such as food, sheltering, and housing. So you'll see that items 1 and 2, that's how we have prioritized and are proposing allocating all of the CDBG funds for housing assistance. And we've been doing that with the Red River Task Force funding. We also want to continue doing that with the Community Development Block Grant. We have also been here before with our CDBG CV, which is COVID-specific funding that we've received from HUD. And we're just carrying out these programs for housing assistance. So it covers like rent, mortgage, security deposits, and utilities. So various things to keep people housed, as being in your home is the safest place to be during a pandemic. And homeless outreach and harm reduction. And then item 3 there is for our home fund. So you'll see about $400,000 going to single family home ownership for Clay County or Cass Clay Community Land Trust. That's a lot to say. And Lake Agassiz Habitat for Humanity. And we're expecting each of them to do 2 builds out of those programs. So with that, I would answer any questions that you might have, or we could just move into the public hearing and then a motion.
Is there anybody in the public who wishes to speak on this program? Anybody wanting to speak? If not, we'll have a closed public hearing, and do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Tia, do you have any anticipation that there may be increased funding, or do you think the funding is going to stay as you outlined it?
I don't have any knowledge of that at this time. Right now for 2020, it's about the same as what we've always gotten. We don't know 2021 yet. That action plan's not due until March. We can't submit it any sooner than March. So we're thinking March or April to submit that, and we might know a little bit more probably this summer.
So when the president talks about recovery plans for COVID, they never slide extra money into the community grant fund?
I hope so. I'm not sure though. At this time, I think, with all of the changes, it's really hard to know if there's going to be more COVID relief funding. And a lot of the rules and regulations related to HUD have been temporarily lifted to make the money go faster without all of the, red tape. So there may be more of those too, which I'm hopeful for, but we just really don't know anything at this time.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. This is not a discussion point, but just to disclose to my peers on the commission that I am a founding board member of the Cass Clay Community Land Trust. I don't have a personal financial interest in it, but I wouldn't want to advance this vote without you all knowing that I sit on that board.
Very good. Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Preston?
Aye.
Gary?
Yes.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item C, application filed by Midway Metals LLC for property tax exemption for a project located at 3344 39th Street South, which applicant will use in the operation of manufacturing aluminum rain gutter accessories and components. Jim Gilmore to explain.
Thank you. I'll go over the basics here. Then I'm also going to have Ryan Oshine from the EDC tell us a little bit about the business. And I believe we have the business owner online for any questions. This is a request for a 5-year property tax exemption for a building located, you kind of see it on this map, at 3344 39th Street South. It's an existing building. The business would purchase this, and that purchase agreement is subject to your approval of this property tax exemption. This business is new to Fargo. I believe it's coming here from Omaha. There'll be 3 employees initially. Over the next 3 years, there'd be 6 additional employees. The positions pay between $20 and $28 an hour. The value of the property tax exemptions, currently the building is paying about $5,300 a year in property taxes. So over a period of 5 years, the property tax exemption has a value of $26,000 to $27,000. They propose to start in March, and the Tax Exempt Review Committee uses a scoring system. We looked at both the first year and the third year. In both cases, it met the criteria, and the Tax Exempt Committee is recommending approval of this project. Ryan will tell us a little bit about the business, and then if the owner's online wants to make any comments, Mr. Eric Bachman, we can get questions from him or send questions to him. Ryan?
Thanks, Jim. Ryan Oss, I'm with the Greater Fargo-Moorhead Economic Development Corporation. Jim stole most of my thunder, so I won't go long. It's a new company to our region, as Jim mentioned, headquartered out of Omaha. They have operations in California. Kind of a new patented gutter technology. The founders of the company by trade are engineers, have this patented system, and are the focus and the target market for it is northern tier climates. It's a gutter system that keeps it free of clogs from leaves, ice, other debris. Minneapolis, St. Paul is a big market of interest to them, as well as Canadian markets. So we're working with them on exporting and growing their markets internationally with Canada as a focus. So interesting company, good paying jobs, as Jim mentioned. Obviously, it's a crawl, walk, run strategy. 5 jobs. I think Eric, who's on the line, is moving to Fargo from Omaha along with 2 other employees. And then, they'll be looking at adding additional jobs over the course of the next 5 years, looking at 21 or 23 jobs by year 5. So with that, I'll stand by if there's questions for me or.
Mr. Gary.
Eric, you on the phone? Or is that who it is? Anyone?
Is it? I don't know, Greg, do we have anyone online?
No one? Okay. I don't know. I was going to ask him if he was going to do it anyway without the incentive. So I'd have to assume no, given that this is not a large incentive. $350,000 building, $26,000 incentive over 5 years. I think they'd still come here.
The only thing I note is in the application, they do have a copy of the purchase agreement, and that purchase agreement is contingent on this exemption. Would they go somewhere else? Would they do it anyway? I can't. We don't have the owner on the line for that question.
Jim, I am here. I don't know if people can't hear me or what the deal is.
Yeah, Commissioner Garrick has a question for you.
Hey, your purchase agreement says apparently that it's a contingent on getting this incentive. Does that mean if you do not get the incentive, you're not going to move here and do business here?
Well, it would have to be revisited. I don't think that there's been a cut and dry determination made to that effect at this point.
My general question to you is, if you don't get the incentive, are you still going to do business here?
I would say it's a possibility. We'd have to evaluate it with our team after the decision is made, but I don't think we've made a determination to that effect to this point.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Preston.
I just have a question, Jim, and it's mostly in relationship to how things get reported on this application form. You had indicated 6 new jobs, but there's only an indication for 2 of them, the salary range, or the other 4 layout. This is on page 3 of the application. And I don't know, maybe that's a question for the owner, because he might.
So, Mr. Chair, so what it is, on the table at the bottom, there's 3 the first year, and then 4. Isn't that correct?
Yeah,
at the bottom?
I was looking at how many by year 3 that they have 3 now, but they're not in Fargo, and by year 3 they would have 9, so that's 6 additional.
Right, but in the table right above that,
Okay.
it just shows 2 under the salary range of 20 to 28. I'm wondering about the other 4.
I think on the original application, there may have been a misinterpretation of what that meant, and the applicant put the 2 jobs they would be adding, not including the 3 that are already with the company that would be moving here. So it's the 2 employees they'd be adding in year 1, plus the 3 that would be moving here for a total of 5.
Okay, gotcha.
And she's
So
just
it's not an
curious.
additional 6, it's, yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
and if Eric, if you have any clarification on that, go ahead.
Yeah, so certainly I would chalk that up to the nomenclature of the question and the application. So I apologize for being unclear both to the commission and the mayor. So all the jobs would. Do you have a question over the specific amount of jobs or what the pay range is for on the table? I'm happy to answer whatever is needed.
Yeah, my question was more about the pay range of additional jobs and whether there were some other jobs that were not being reported in the pay range table. But I think you've answered my question.
All the jobs. Yeah, all the jobs will be in that general pay range, at least initially.
And I think if you look at the question there where the pay range is, it says the number of jobs in the first year, and so they're starting at 3
Right.
and then they're adding 2.
But you had used the number 6. At least that's what I heard when you were reporting.
I'd use the number 6 going up to your 3.
Gotcha. Okay.
Any other questions? Close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Gary?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. Thank you. Now we're going to go to resident comments. Do we have time for that before a break? You guys okay with that?
Sure.
Resident comments get 2.5 minutes. My first speaker is Christina Klinkhammer.
All right, good evening. I planned on reading, it was a total of 4 minutes, but I'm just going to try to summarize. Now all glory to God, who is able through his mighty power at work within us to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. Ephesians 3:20. How do you gain control over a population? You can't do it all at once. There would be too much noncompliance. So you tell the people that there is a deadly and foreign virus. You use their fear of dying as a weapon, and you tell them that it is in their best interest to slowly, little by little, willingly hand over their rights and freedoms. You're relying on their fear, so you get the news stations to broadcast daily case counts and deaths, so they don't forget to be afraid. You have social media platforms censor the information that people are able to receive, because what is the most valuable thing in the world? The people's perception and what they're able to consider. Shut down schools and churches, because Lord knows we do not want these people educating themselves or turning to their faith. You have them wear required face masks everywhere at all times. Not only does this restrict oxygen to the brain, heart, and lungs, for children especially, the damage that it does to the brain is irreparable. Most importantly, these masks send a subliminal psychological message. People should be afraid of one another. They are not safe. They are a disease. They symbolize being silenced and controlled. And if we are in masks and socially distanced, we cannot exchange information amongst each other to realize the truth. So the official narrative goes unchallenged. It dehumanizes us, and individuality is able to perish. You have the people police each other and shame each other for not complying. This has been prophesied about. In the Bible, it states that we're supposed to have discernment. We're supposed to know better. It says right on the sides of the boxes of surgical masks will not protect against the spread of coronaviruses, including COVID-19. And on the sides of the tests, it reads, this is not intended to diagnose any disease. Yet still the people just go ahead and do as they're told. Little do they know they are being led straight to the slaughterhouse, but soon will they not only be physically headed straight for death? What we are talking about here is the death of the soul. This is a test, people, and most of you are going to fail miserably. Under no circumstances are we supposed to help facilitate evil, not for any job or shopping rights, nor in an attempt to avoid public scrutiny. None of these things are excusable. Those who live in this constant fearful state must have little to no faith in God and his capabilities or likelihood to take care of you. All right, so it's time to wake up to the lie that we're all being sold and consider whom in all this madness has the most to gain or profit and who has the most to lose. Then ask yourselves, are you really willing to sell your soul?
Christopher Cohen.
I'm here to talk about a public safety issue. I live at the Arbors at McCormick Park. It's previously known as Community Homes, at 23rd Street South and 6th Avenue South. And unfortunately, the complex has been the site of 2 shootings since December 21st. The most recent one was yesterday morning. We also had a stabbing back in June. All of these were in the newspaper. In September, I was involved in an incident in my parking lot where a 19-year-old male brandished 2 different weapons at me. I was able to take a photograph of one of the weapons, and this is the photograph I took. I was reluctant. Now the 19-year-old told me that he would cut me up, would stab me, and would kill me. Initially, I was hesitant to give the police my name and address because I believed that he would come back and make complete his threat against me. He also chased me. The police looked at this photo and said that this is looks to be either a handkerchief or a paper towel, and that it, quote, does not appear to be a weapon. As you can see, the suspect's hand is wrapped around the handle of the weapon. The color of the handle is different than the other half of the weapon where the handle appears to be inserted into. It has a marbled texture. There's shine along the curved edges. There's a gleam at the corner. There's a straight line along the back edge of the weapon. There's designed curves on it. There's a small circular detail, and there's a seam through it. I asked the Fargo detective who was in charge of investigating the case if he would try to visually match this with other known weapons. He told me that's only done on TV. I contacted his supervisor, who would not respond to me. I contacted the lieutenant, Christopher Helmick, who told me that he would not respond to my questions because that would be a debate, and therefore he would refrain from any further discussion of the case. I also contacted the chief of police. He's not contacted me back. I contacted you, Mayor, because you're the liaison to the police. I've contacted you twice. You have not responded. That's why I'm here tonight. Thank you.
Next speaker is Alexander Simon. Alexander, are you ready?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Alexander Simon. I said this last time, I hate being here. My knees are going to be trembling in seconds. I hate speaking in front of people. I don't have much choice anymore. COVID is real. I'm aware of that. It primarily hurts those over 70 with pre-existing comorbidities. The U.S. shouldn't ever use fear and terror as a weapon to control its own citizens. The mask mandate and penalties, and I've seen them, are mostly propaganda. Masks can't work against a virus in general population. I'm not talking about a hospital or a nursing home or people with risk. Magically, on January 20th, 2021, WHO provided a novel standard for PCR testing. It lowered the viral cycle threshold to 30, and a doctor must see the patient before a positive test is granted. Essentially, this makes it much more difficult to have a positive case. Frankly, I think I'm kind of stupid myself. That's not self-deprecating. I'm not well-read. I'm not well-learned. I do have an allergy to BS. If I knew about the viral cycle threshold back in April, 11 months ago, why didn't the WHO? What were the North Dakota labs using as their testing standard? Do you know before you endorsed this mandate? enforced this mandate. At best, you've been lied to all summer. Otherwise, you've been complicit in the worst fraud that's been forced upon the American people ever. Asymptomatic spread of COVID is a hoax. Therefore, masks are useless in general population. If you're sick, you have a fever, you have symptoms, stay home. It's what we used to do. We need to return to logic. We need to return to critical thinking. We need to return to rational thought, not fear. If I'm stupid and I can see this, if I can see this has been a load of bull for 11 months, what's wrong with you? I will not be unpersoned. I will not be assimilated.
That's all we have for public hearings today. We'll take a 5-minute break and come back at 6:10. Thank you. We'll call the meeting back to order. We're going to do the COVID-19 update, Fargo-Cass Public Health Update. Desi Fleming is not available tonight, but Chris Holman will be online. She has some slides for us. So a lot of questions in the community of how we're doing, and we have continued to do well. We are down to almost 3% at the present time. The state and Cass County have been trying to merge how the incident is, and it continues to now come closer and closer together. Next slide. 4-day positivity rate is what we're looking at, and that's what I like to see come together. We would like to be in moving our businesses to green and blue. We like to get them down below 2%. So we're now at 3.5, and you have merged both Cass County and the state so that we're exact the same level. You can see at one time we were up to 17%. So this is a great progression at this time. Next slide. The hospitalizations have also continued to decline, with now only 50 in the state. There have been 186 deaths in Cass County and 1,411 total deaths in the state of North Dakota. ICU admissions are also down, and we're getting less people who are sick, and we're also, now at this time, we're giving antibody solutions to people who turn positive, have comorbid disease. Next slide, please. Now, the vaccine is what everybody's wondering about, and these have not been updated since last Thursday, so we have gotten more out. There are 64 enrolled provider sites within Cass County in which the vaccine is being distributed. Fargo-Cass Public Health continues to vaccinating in the 1B group in order of priority, allowing also giving the second dose to the 1A priority group. We will be joining Sanford, Essentia, and at the COVID Community Vaccine Center located at the old Gorman's building February 1st. Again, we encourage everybody to consider vaccinations for COVID when your priority group is up, which will not only benefit you, but it will benefit the community at large. 74,000 doses have already been administered. We have 93,000, and we continue to give them as we get them. We do not let any of it sit around, and we do not waste any vaccine. If you are not part of the two big health organizations, you can call Public Health to get an appointment. All vaccines are given by appointment. Next slide, please. And then when we always talk about what color are we or what color we can get, and we continue to show, we're now showing green in many of the parameters that the governor might consider to go to a green level. And tests per thousand, we continue to test highly, more than South Dakota. Positivity rates going down, and the average cases in the community are going down. So if you look at the bars on all these graphs, we're green or blue, would oftentimes suggest that perhaps we could go to the blue level on Smart Restart. Chris, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think you covered it very well, Mayor.
Any questions of Chris or myself on that update? Are we okay? Okay. Next item, Commissioner Pickborn would like to have a discussion about reducing restrictions in the city of Fargo to match the state. And could you show this a slide, please? Commissioner Pickborn? Questions or? So here's what happened is when the governor came out with his new recommendations, we are synced up with them. Before in yellow or moderate, it used to be all non-essential businesses are limited to 50%. We asked them to push that up. It's now 65%. These are the rules which, Chris, I think you're following when you're working with all the businesses. Can you comment on size of groups that can be together?
Are we talking restaurants and bars or large gathering venues?
Large gathering.
So it all depends on the square footage capacity of the venue. ND Smart Restart has come out with a calculator based off square footage that has a max capacity. Again, when we have a role in this, we're not saying yes, we're not saying no to any activity that's put in front of us. We're merely making the recommendations because that's what they currently are. And we're basing that off of the state's identified risk levels. So the major difference between local and state currently is that you've extended the mask requirements locally. Otherwise, we are in lockstep with the state's recommendations.
Mr. Pipkin?
Well, Mr. Chair, my thing is, it causes confusion if the state has one rule and we're a different rule. The other thing is, it would be much different if we had much higher numbers than the rest of the state, which we don't. I guess that's my main concern. And obviously, I think we should encourage people to use face coverings, but the whole mandate, I think I would be in favor of eliminating that, especially to me, at this point, the numbers don't justify a mandate. If the numbers went back up again, then you would reconsider it, but that's my perspective. Thanks.
Any other discussion? Next item, Commissioner Preston would like to report from the Liquor Control Board on final decisions made for non-compliant liquor establishments on the mask mandate. Steve Sprague, I guess, is going to report. Or Chief?
Well, I think the chief maybe is on remotely.
Can I just interrupt? Because I wasn't done with the conversation. Because to me, we need to do something. Are we still under a state of emergency? Do we still have a mandate? And how does the numbers that we just looked at, how do they justify that? They don't.
The mask mandate is voted on by the commission and it will last till mid-February.
Yeah, that's why
Sir, let me finish. You had your discussion. We have a super spreader in the state of Minnesota this time, and Williams County in the state of North Dakota is seeing some climbing in their numbers. So there's some concern as what's going to happen in the next 2 weeks. We hope it goes and continues down. But the way this virus works, if you anticipate too soon and go too quickly, sometimes things bounce back up. There's a lot of events happening in February, and we're hoping our numbers can keep to go that direction. And there's already been an action. If you want to present a different action at this time, you're welcome to do that.
Mr. Chairman, so I just have a couple of more comments. So we made a motion, well, we can re-vote on something. That's why we're the city commission. It isn't like we can't vote on it again. If you look at the numbers right now, that does not justify the rules that we have. It's time to change it. And when you start saying, well, there's something scary around the corner, that's baloney. Show us the facts. If you look at the facts, we don't need to have a mandate right now. If the numbers go up again, then we would reconsider that. That's what I believe we should do. To say, well, there's some super spreader event, I think people are not buying that anymore. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Mr. Strand.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Pepcorn, I absolutely cannot wait to join you with this action. I'm just not quite there yet. I'm almost there. And I think the public is getting closer and closer, but let's let the vaccines roll out for a little bit more time. Let's see if we can avoid a surprise second surge, and then I'm right on board with you.
So, Mr. Chair, just a quick comment. We are infringing on people's rights right now. We should encourage people to wear masks and wash their hands and social distance. But to continue this when the numbers don't justify it, we are damaging our credibility. If you go out in the community, people have already moved on. And so if we continue to do this, anyway, I'll just stop my comments. I appreciate it. I would make the motion that we discontinue in the past, that we follow what the state is, and we drop the mandate. That's my motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion?
Mayor, could I have a question, please?
Yes.
For explanation for, I think I've got it right, but our mask mandate in Fargo has no enforcement, does it?
That's right.
So it's a standard, so to speak, but, and there's no other differences with the state?
No, in the state of North Dakota, there has never been one of the mask mandates enforced. There's nobody been charged with it.
One more question, if I might.
Yes.
Commissioner Preston, has public health weighed in on this?
Yeah, the conversation that I had with public health was to keep the mask mandate in place until we have more vaccinations completed. And it's difficult to know what that number should be, but certainly that can be revisited in 2 weeks to see where we're at.
Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Garrick?
Yes.
Preston?
No.
Strand?
No.
Mahoney?
No. Now, Commissioner Preston has a report from the Liquor Control Board on final decisions made. Steve Sprague to explain. Or Chief.
And I had asked the chief to join us here, but I guess he's got another meeting.
I'm here.
He is on. Okay.
Hello, good evening, commissioners. So the Liquor Control Board, in terms of COVID compliance, we had 2 businesses in which we had some difficulties gaining compliance. Based on the last almost 30 days of oversight of the businesses, both of them are in compliance. We haven't had any further issues. So at the Liquor Control Board meeting on the 20th, I recommended that the board receive and file the information relative to those businesses. In the event we have future issues, we could come back to the board and that information would be readily available. In total, we have done 374 business checks since November 16th. And 93% of those were compliant. 6% we provided education and gained compliance. So in large part, and right now the ball is a little has expanded in terms of their capacity and so forth. So we continue to watch, but there's a limited enforcement piece going forward at this point.
Commissioner Preston?
Yeah, my concern was that, the Liquor Control Board, probably the meetings, timing of the meetings didn't correlate real well to the problems that we were having at that point with the compliance checks. I don't know why or if it was considered to do a special Liquor Control Board meeting to deal with that noncompliance at that time, which it seemed like would have been wise probably to have done. It wasn't done. My question is, I would hope that this would be in the file for when this business then renews its license in June or whenever that happens, and that it would be a consideration with the renewal of the license.
All right. I would agree. I think Steve Spratt could probably fill you in. I talked to him about the issue. Steve, can you pick that one up?
Yeah, so we did receive and file, and the reports from the police department have been placed in the files of the 2 businesses that were in the offending categories.
Okay, so the data was actually received and filed because there was no motion or there was no discussion about it or anything when I watched the meeting.
Right, so it was received and filed, and they are in their files.
Mr. Gehrig.
And just to be clear, Liquor Control Board basically voted by doing so to not have any repercussions. So that's their recommendation to us. We don't have the authority on Liquor Control Board to penalize them.
There was no action taken, excuse me, Mr. Chairman.
Right, so basically that's what we're telling people. When we receive and file it and say, yep, this is just what happened, our recommendation then is to not have a penalty, right? Which is then we take on as a city commission to do whatever we want with that information. Liquor Control does not have the authority to penalize anybody.
Oh, sure.
It has to come here for that. So if
there's
there's something that if you disagree with that position, which is obviously within your right to do so, you can suggest a penalty right now, but that board can't have any authority over that. It's up to here. So if there's something else you want to see happen, now is the time.
The difficulty was, I think you and Commissioner Pipcorn were unable to make the meeting, so that I think what Arlette Preston you're talking about is where the commissioners have an opportunity to review that. And did you want any action? You're saying receive and file.
Right. In my opinion, then no action was necessary. And in the long history of the bars and restaurants in the city of Fargo, these incidences are very low on the threat level, I would say, from what we've seen in the past. So if we're looking at pulling licenses and things like that, well, we're going to be pulling a hell of a lot of licenses then, because when people get shot or stabbed, or someone gets overserved and gets in a car accident, these are the things that happen more often. Not wearing a mask inside, I don't think requires that we pull someone's license.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just
Preston?
make one final comment and I'm done. You're entirely right. City Commission could have done something in regards to the noncompliance. However, we have a Liquor Control Board in place for a reason, and that is to look at the data, digest it, and make decisions about it as well. Second comment I would make is, yes, in regards to stabbings and shootings, this is not as big of an issue, but it is probably a long-term issue in regards to compliance with other issues or with other requirements. And would hope that this would be part of the consideration when that license comes up for renewal. That's all I'm asking.
Mr. Garrett.
One final comment is, that's what this board did. They took the information, they looked at it, and the recommendation was to no action. So it's not as though we're not reviewing what happened. They looked at it, they said, not that big a deal, receive and file. And if we disagree as a city commission, then that was their recommendation to us.
All I wanted.
Okay, back up more. Very good, thanks, Steve. Legislative update, Bruce Grubb to start. Tony, do you want to discuss your issue first, or Bruce, do you want to go through legislative issues?
Oh, I think mine would preempt.
Same time?
Yeah, I think.
Should we do that?
Yeah. Give me just a shot real quick here, Bruce. So,
Okay.
I want this on here because now we're starting to get requests from, organizations or legislators to have people like our staff go and give their opinions representing the city of Fargo, or at least it looks like they're representing the city of Fargo. This happens every year. We're going to get asked our opinions as city commissioners. How do we play that? In the past, we've taken votes and we've said, here's the official stance of the city of Fargo. Any other commissioner can say, well, I disagree, but I do not represent the majority. The city's stance is this, and here's my dissenting opinion on that. It has been understood that that's how things have worked. I just want to revisit it because we have a new member that has not gone through this in a long time. So I want to talk about how we're going to do this. I see the draft here. I've got a couple of issues with the draft because it basically says if the majority takes a vote, the minority people, whether it's 2 or 1, can't say anything anymore. And I don't like that, right? Obviously.
No, you can say something, but not representing the city of Fargo. You can represent yourself.
Right, but in
But
the
the
past.
official policy would be city of Fargo's official policy. It's just like the school board. If the board takes one policy, that's what you'd support.
Right.
But you can speak against it as a citizen.
Right, but in the past, Lettergate, we had, conversations about incentives, whatever. And I, as a city commissioner, obviously have an opinion on that. That's not in the majority. But if there's something being talked about at the state level, I'm going to speak up. And I'm going to say, my name is Tony Garrick, and I'm a city commissioner. I do not represent the majority. City of Fargo disagrees with me, but here's the dissenting view. As long as I can do that, I'm very happy with that. So this one, they need to be changed.
So, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman,
Pepcorn.
I think you have to be very careful. I would encourage you to not say that you're a city commissioner, say you're an individual. I think you have to be very careful to say, I am not representing the views of the city of Fargo. You are perfectly within your individual rights to say stuff, but when you start saying I'm a city commissioner, that implicitly implies that somehow it involves the city of Fargo. So I think you have to be very careful. Everybody has our own rights, but you can't, once you start saying city of Fargo, then I'm not comfortable. I guess that's my opinion. Thank you.
Commissioner Preston.
I guess in this conversation, it's not clear to me how we get to the point of having a position from the city of Fargo. And that's the issue. We've already had staff out there, or not out there, but staff testifying. And in fact, there's a session with some business owners tomorrow, I believe, on one of the bills that I have some strong opinions about. So does that also apply to staff, that they are there to present their position based on their opposition or support for the bill based on their position, not representing the full city of Fargo? I have concerns about not having a process for having a full support or opposition to something.
So when we took this up and Commissioner Garrett came to me and asked me this question, we said maybe what we need to do is have a weekly discussion about the bills that are going forward, get an opinion of the commission. Staff would support only the bills that follow policy. What the idea behind that would be is we would all, every Friday, meet at noon, go over all the bills that are being heard next week, and then you would influence whether we testify or don't testify, or we oppose or support, or we have a neutral position. In discussion with Bruce and Mike, we felt that might be the best way to not have that problem of having somebody testifying. But for instance, Eric had to testify in some municipal court fines, and there was a way of doing it that's better for us, doesn't harm anything or process. It's just a better process. There's some stuff on wastewater comes up. A variety of different things come up where we have local expertise that we're asked about. So it's just, this is the discussion tonight of how you want us to handle those, because the city of Fargo was oftentimes asked for expert opinion, because we, big enough city, we got enough experts. But that's what, we're gonna go bill by bill. You're gonna have a list of bills in front of you, and you can pull any bill you want and have a discussion about it and tell this team what you want. So I think we have a way forward that we will get to be, give our opinion, and it can disagree, but a 3-2 vote would be the majority opinion of the group. Commissioner Garrett.
Yeah, and that was my concern. That's why I brought it up. That was my concern. You know, police chief going out there being asked his opinion. Well, is he the police chief of Fargo, or is he someone who's been in law enforcement for a long time and he knows a thing or two? You know, it's a big difference, right? And it's different for employees versus elected officials, in my opinion, as well, right? Employees work for the city of Fargo. If they have a different opinion than what we are directing, they can go as private citizens and say, I disagree with that, but they can't say, I'm representing the city of Fargo. Elected officials, in my opinion, are very different. And just so you guys are aware, if I disagree and I feel strongly enough about it, I am going to send a letter, and I might go down there. I will not say that I represent the majority. I will say I'm a single city commissioner representing the minority, and that's what I've done in the past, right? Some people don't like it, and that's okay, but it's not illegal, and I'm going to do it. So I hope that the process works. I hope that we get, if we want to send employees down and talk about these issues, I think this is a good way to do it. We'll have a vote, we'll have it up or down, and we'll see what the majority wants, and that'll be the official stance of the city of Fargo going forward for each of these issues.
Mr. Chair, real quick, the main thing in this might be minutia, but to use city letterhead, you can't do that for your individual views. I'm not comfortable with that. The other thing is, when you say city commissioner, you can't do that. You have to say, I'm an individual representing myself. I'm not speaking for anybody else. That's the thing that we've had issues with in the past. And so I think you have to be very careful, because all five of us, anyway, I just think you have to be very careful. Thank you.
Commissioner Strand, you want to weigh in on this? Because it's really the question, can you use the letterhead city commission if Tony disagrees and wants to express his view?
I wouldn't want to stifle speech. However, there's lanes for appropriate speech relative to the hats you wear. You know, in my head, if you're speaking as a citizen, you speak as a citizen. Other people can identify you in your life, but, you know, you're speaking as a citizen. Then I would say if you're speaking as a citizen, you're doing it on your own time. You're not on the clock. You're not getting reimbursed mileage and expenses from the city or the public entity to go down privately. And otherwise, if they're representing the views of the city and with the blessing of department heads or the commission, I'm all for it.
So to his question, can he use city commission letterhead when he gives his opinion that's contrary to the city policy?
Yes, I can.
Is the question.
I don't know the answer to that legally.
Well, here's the point, is I'm not just speaking for myself. I am an elected official, right? Employees are empowered when we vote this way to speak for the city of Fargo. I'm one of 5 city commissioners. I was elected. So when I speak as a city commissioner and I dissent against what you guys said, I am representing a portion of the residents. So it's not just me saying it. And that's the lane I'm talking about. It holds more weight to say I represent 20,000, 25,000 people in the city of Fargo versus one person's opinion. And that's what I've been elected to do, give my opinion and vote. So I'm not going to be disrespectful about it. I'm not going to do it for no reason. I've done this probably 3 times since I've been a commissioner, written a letter saying I represent the minority, I disagree with this incentive policy, and here's why. And I'll continue to do that.
Eric Johnson, I don't know, do we have a policy that covers this?
I think we encountered this issue the last session, and I don't recall if we actually voted on a policy. I could research that question. My general recollection was just looking at the law. Again, I could be mistaken here, but it's been a couple of years. But my recollection was the question was whether an individual person who's going to write a letter happens to use city letterhead, so public property for some purpose contrary to the majority. It was a pretty narrow question. I'm not sure if it was a significant use of property to use a letterhead or not. I think it ended up being a matter of policy that the city commission, and again, I don't recall if you voted on it. I think there was some discussion about it and sort of an understanding gained, but that was the extent of it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just.
Ms. Preston.
You know, it seems to me that this whole issue, if it if it happens that somebody uses letterhead and somebody else doesn't support that, the way we deal with it is censure them up here. It's not an issue of telling them they can't do it. It seems we, as a body, need to deal with it rather than trying to shut down speech.
Well, I just refer, that's something, the rest of the policy, okay, we can have a discussion about how to handle this particular item. And you're right, Commissioner Garrick, you've used it 3 times and you've identified you're against the majority position. Commissioner Strand.
Mayor, I have a question about this Friday discussion that happens at noon. I assume that's a public noticed meeting?
It would be a public notice meeting, and our only agenda item would be legislative issues, and the commission could vote on issues at that time.
So would there be action potentially, or always, or will action be recommendations to the full commission? You may not have all of us there, you may not.
Oh, it would be considered, unless you didn't have quorum, it'd be considered a commission meeting.
Okay.
So I'll just, if it's okay, we'll put aside that one item and we'll have a discussion, come back and talk about it. Bruce, you have some legislative issues to go through, so we're going to have hearings next week or this week as well.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, and we will come back to that. But this week will be the 3rd full week of the 2021 legislative session, and the bill deadline for the House was a week ago, January 18th, and there were a total of 500 bills introduced on the House side. Administratively, we went through all 500 of those bills and extracted 171, which is what you see on this list, those things that we think had a touch point for the city. Today's the bill deadline for the Senate, and as of 1 o'clock today, there were 288 bills introduced. The deadline is midnight tonight, so there are likely to be more to come in, but we've administratively gone through the 288 as well. And then we've populated those in a similar list for the Senate bills. And this is just intended to be a quick reference, shows the bill number, a basic description of the bill, and which city department that's been assigned to and tracking that. So from this, though, Michael has been coordinating a master tracking list that has all of the information on each of the bills that you might find here. The department it was assigned to, their recommended position on the bill, whether that's support, oppose, or monitor, the reasons why they would recommend that. And then this is my 3rd session as city administrator as well, and in the past sessions, even before I was city administrator, I worked with my liaison commissioner if I was assigned something like this. And the trouble that we've had, though, admittedly, Commissioner Garrick's right, when the commission only meets every other week, there are 2 weeks of bill hearings that occur. And the problem with the bill hearings is you're not aware of what bills will be heard till the Friday prior to them being heard the following week. And that's where when the mayor came to me, I thought, yeah, it's just not frequent enough. What if we had a noon sort of meeting, 1 hour dedicated to legislative things? We can cover the upcoming bill hearing list for the following week and talk about those, take a position as a commission. The problem with that is this is another week here, and there's also an entire week of hearings scheduled this week. And so if you're okay with that, I'd like right now to quickly run through the list of hearings for this week. And after I'm done, we can come back and talk about, just like we might do this Friday for next week, if that's acceptable. Today, Monday is essentially over for bill hearings, but there were 3 bills of interest that were heard. House Bill 1277 is a bill to increase the residential property tax exemption for new construction from $150,000 cap to $250,000. And the original language in the bill suggested extending that from 2 to 5 years. We understand now that there's an amendment out there to remove the 5 years, bring it back to 2 years. House Bill 1184 is a bill to allow persons under 21 years of age to be allowed in businesses where alcohol is sold at the business owner's discretion. House Bill 1351 is a sales and use tax exemption for sales made to 501c3 senior citizens organizations that provide informational, health, welfare, and counseling types of services. Then on Tuesday, House Bill 1169 is a bill about state agencies, government agencies competing with private industry. And that bill basically says that if there's a complaint, that the Public Service Commission will hold a hearing on that. And if that is the case, they will cease and desist that. Senate Bill 1292 is a bill requiring the display of penalty and interest information on property tax statements. House Bill 1348 is a bill to prohibit the testing and sampling of wastewater for what in the bill says is genetic material or evidence of disease. And Jim Hossauer and I are a little bit concerned about that one because that's really about, we're sampling wastewater all the time because we've got to discharge treated effluent into the Red River of the North. There's a similar bill that we don't oppose, and that is House Bill 1348. This is a similar bill, but all this says is you're required to have a public hearing and get City Commission approval to do your sampling process. So we're okay with that. Senate Bill 2220 is a bill related to the dispensing and selling of alcoholic beverages on Sunday. House Bill 1494 is a bill related to a new law enforcement grant program, and that's intended to help with job retention through some sort of bonus program. On Wednesday, House Bill 1175 is a bill related to business immunity from liability claims associated with COVID. Similarly, House Bill 1376 is a bill related to employer immunity of liability claims associated with COVID. And then House Bill 1287 is a bill relating to overdose prevention and immunity. And we may ask Chief or Commissioner Strand if you'd like to speak to that one when we get done here. Also on Wednesday, House Bill 1372 is a bill for optional residential property tax freeze for disabled persons or persons aged 65 and over. Senate Bill 2213 is a bill related to property tax credit for disabled persons. Senate Bill 2270 is a bill related to an optional residential property tax reduction for seniors. House Bill 1414 is a bill related to a deduction for retailer remittance of sales tax, and that is related to the state share of sales tax only. And then House Bill 1301 is another bill for employer immunity for communicable diseases and mandatory immunizations. On Thursday, House Bill 1175 is a bill related to closing times for polling places. Seeing a lot of polling bills. House Bill 1238 is a bill related to polling places as well. House Bill 1475 is a bill related to the North Dakota Building Authority. They're trying to establish a state facility energy improvement program. House Bill 1312 is a bill to limit the governor's authority when it comes to elections. House Bill 1253 is a bill related to the administration of elections. House Bill 1222 is a bill related to the reconstruction of non-conforming structures. House Bill 1435 is a bill related to police officers, patrolmen, corrections officers, and firefighters who die in the line of duty. And then Senate Bill 2208 is a bill related to assessment drains, drain permits, and drain assessment districts, which Brenda Derrig and engineering are keeping an eye on. Then moving to Friday, House Bill 1360 is a bill related to electronic voting versus paper ballots. House Bill 1239 is a bill related to electronic voting versus paper ballots. House Bill 1280 is a bill related to electronic voting and the counting of electronic votes. House Bill 1419, we just met and discussed earlier today. That's a bill to give cities the authority to implement an infrastructure fee versus special assessments for infrastructure maintenance projects and arterials. Senate Bill 2127 is a bill related to a state housing incentive fund. And then Senate Bill 2042 is a bill related to an increase in employer and employee contributions to ND-PERS. So be happy to go back to any of those and discuss those a little bit. I think certainly of note, I believe Commissioner Strand and the police chief met late last week.
Let's go to just Monday. Let's go day
Just go to
by
Monday?
day.
Okay.
Yeah. And we won't bounce all over. Anybody have any concerns about Monday's stuff?
Mayor?
Yes.
Actually, I kind of like that idea of increasing the tax break for new homes, but I understand that that won't likely fly. I've suggested that locally as an option to enhance development of single-family homes versus apartments, but that's just me personally.
Well, they did have, John, we've almost gone through 87 million in the city of Fargo of those 2-year exemptions. It is for 2 years and it's up to 150 of value. So if you do the smaller homes, they're 200 to 250, that's a pretty good stroke. The question is the 250, and that some people would say you'd be giving up some revenue with that. Commissioner Preston?
Mr. Chairman, actually, I think the core neighborhood plan, there is an item actually that relates somewhat to this, and looking at the kind of incentives that we are providing for greenfields kind of development versus more inner core kind of incentives, and the ability for the inner core to compete with the greenfields. So this would be going in the opposite direction where we really should be.
Any other items on that first page on Monday? How about Tuesday?
Well, what is Arlette saying? Is she saying she does not want us to support that? Is that what you're?
I'm sorry?
Are you saying you don't want to support it?
Yeah.
Okay, we should vote on that then. If it's not a unanimous vote, then we need to know who's the majority, who's in. If we're gonna make that our official stance, right? That's the whole point.
Well, that was today's testimony.
Oh, I'm
And
sorry.
Confession to make is, we did submit testimony
Right.
opposing the 5 years. And in past sessions, when department heads have reviewed bills, they've kind of reviewed them in comparison to our current policies,
Right.
procedures, practices. And so a certain level, as long as it was in conformance for how we operate, doesn't necessarily make it right, but.
I hear
do
you're saying,
that as
and
well, yeah.
I think the whole point of this, though, is to get us on the record to say the city of Fargo does support this or does not. So if our
So
letter,
we put a testimony to oppose, is that correct, Kent?
Yes.
Okay.
no, that first one, okay.
So you made a motion to oppose. Tony, you want to second that?
Well, I think we should just get on the record. If someone wants to vote on it, if it's not unanimous, we should vote on it so that we can see who's in and who's out, because that's going to be important for the people to see that this was either not unanimous or it was or whatever else.
Okay. Any other discussion?
So,
Mr.
Mr. Chairman, I
Tran?
have a question. Didn't this already happen?
The hearing already happened, but he wants to have official record of how the commission feels on it? Because it's not dead yet. It's,
Right, it's going to be voted on at some point, right? So
It's just a hearing.
this is just the hearing.
Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm appreciating the desire to engage our sense of these bills, but I'm not inclined to shoot from the hip with a very lack of information. I just don't want to be irresponsible in that regard, where I'm just throwing out a gut response to something I know very little about, except surface value. I appreciate that, but I'd be cautioning myself to take a stand on something. My sense is this: I remember 2 years ago, we went through a similar process, and then some of us in the community, Commissioner Preston was a citizen then, but at the request of citizens, I brought one topic to the commission, which was the ERA amendment. And we had our own internal discussion about where our city stood relative to recommendations to the legislature. In my head, I wish we could do this weekly, but that's where I think we should go. If you really care about an issue so much so, put it on our agenda.
It's on our agenda.
I mean, on a next agenda, make it an
Commissioner
item
Jarrett.
of debate with focus.
The point, John, is that we're sending physically bodies out there to say this is a good or a bad bill, and we're having no control over that. I want control over that. If the police chief is sent, or the fire chief especially, 'cause that's my liaison, if he is out there supporting a bill that I don't support, well, what the heck? I don't like that. I mean, this happens all the time. We're sending dozens of people out, and we don't know if they're supporting the bill or opposing it, and we may have different opinions on that. So this is the whole point of this exercise is I want us to be on the record so that when Kent Costin goes to talk about HB 1277, he is doing so with the blessing of the majority of the city commission instead of just him or just her or whatever. You know what I mean? Because that can get real ugly real fast.
You can still abstain to the motion if you're not sure what you feel. If you feel a lack of information, then the people who feel strong about it would vote and you'd abstaining vote. Any other discussion on this one? Commissioner Preston?
Maybe, and this isn't related directly to the motion, but it just feels like it's going to be really cumbersome to do this with this process here. We're trying to catch up is what we're trying to do. So if we could get a spreadsheet similar to this, which I just got today, I don't know if other people have seen it. And as individuals, we do our individual research, figure out where we're coming from, and then as a spreadsheet, a full spreadsheet, we decide, yeah, we agree with the support, we don't agree with the support. It might be a little bit less cumbersome.
Okay. So we can delay the vote on this today because we're going to meet this Friday anyway. We all can do our research and then come back on this bill. If it's okay, the hearing's already done. We're not going to change what happened. So if it's okay with the motioner and the seconder, I'll delay that. Tuesday, which is tomorrow. What do you got, Bruce?
Well, there they are on the screen. State competition with private industry, penalty and interest information on property tax statement. 1348, Mr. Hassauer and I would like to oppose that one and support the other one because they're similar in nature. The one that still gives us flexibility, we sample wastewater all the time, to come in front of the city commission, even hold a public hearing. There's nothing to fear about that.
Yeah, I would hope that that's a unanimous from everybody for that one. Is there anyone that doesn't agree that with him?
With the wastewater issue, is that okay? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anything else on that level then? What's the thing about beverages on Sunday? What's different about that?
Yeah.
Steve, do you have the detail on that one?
The intent of that bill, Senate Bill 2220, is to allow opening on Sundays at 8 a.m. If you remember back a few years ago, it used to be noon, and then they rolled it back to 11, and now they're seeing if 8 a.m. would stick.
And what is the position currently? What were you going to say? Were you going to be against it or for it?
I have no position on
Okay,
that
good.
either way.
Did you haven't testified?
No, I have not.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just clarify. So Bruce, this list are not the bills that we're actually providing testimony on. These are just the hearings.
Those are just the hearings of note. We have not,
Right.
other than 1277 this week, that's the only testimony that's been provided yet.
Commissioner Pepcorn.
To me, Mr. Chair, let's just talk about those instead of going through all this. Otherwise, this is a.
Okay.
And then I have one question for Bruce. Are we going to be able to call in on Friday and participate? Or is it going to be a phone thing, or do we all have to be in person, or what's the plan?
We have the capabilities of doing it either virtual or in person.
I would appreciate having the virtual option. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, me too.
We can do that for everybody. I think that'd be easy for everybody. Okay, Tuesday, nothing up on that. How about Wednesday? Chief, are you still with us?
Yes.
You're doing
Yes, sir.
testimony on Bill 1287. Can you explain to the group what you're saying about 1287?
Yes, this kind of marries up with our overdose issue that has been skyrocketing. last year, it continues into this year, even going back to 2019, in an issue that was brought to my attention by our investigators in terms of their inability to have an enhanced penalty for the drug trafficker, not the addict, but the trafficker who is delivering these narcotics to people in our community and causing deaths in several instances. We have investigations in which we can identify the same individuals involved in delivery, and currently there's no enhanced penalty for them if they cause someone's death. So it's contrary to essentially every other major felony that's on the books. There's a felony murder statute that if you commit an armed robbery and you kill someone while you're committing that crime, there's an enhanced penalty. It goes up to a Class A felony. We think obviously the same should be true for someone who delivers these dangerous narcotic mixtures to members of our community. We also had a large discussion with our harm reduction folks who had some concerns about the initial language suggestions and whether or not it would diminish or damage the Good Samaritan immunity clause. That was not the intent at all. However, we did get some newly crafted language from the state's attorney's office after that discussion that I've already submitted to Representative Compliment as a potential revision to eliminate any of those concerns. But the focus of the bill is providing the state's attorney's office the opportunity for penalty enhancement for drug traffickers who provide this and cause an overdose.
It says something about immunity needle exchange. What is that?
I don't know. I think Bruce just made an error there. There's nothing about needle exchange in the bill.
Thank you. Commissioner Preston, do you have any questions about that? Are you okay with that, or?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
But I have one that is also being heard on the 27th, which is not on our list here. It's 1414. I'm sorry, I thought we were done with Wednesday. Anyway, it's a bill to allow the state tax to be, you got it right there. Okay.
But before we move to the issue, we were
Didn't see
talking about this bill, and I for one don't support it. So
sorry.
I want to make clear that if the majority does, that's fine. I would speak out against it for exactly what the chief said. I think it'll deter people from calling in when someone does have an overdose from getting that help. I know it's not the intent, but intent of law is hardly ever how the law is used.
Well, we addressed that with John Eliason. I'll let the chief speak to that. Go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. So, Commissioner, the language remains in there. They can't prosecute someone if they stay behind and report it. So that there's no change to that. These traffickers are not the people staying behind and reporting it. They are dealing the narcotics, they're causing fatal overdoses, and they're going on to their next deal. So there is a definite delineation between the two different types of individuals. And the state's attorney's office reviewed the language, actually crafted it, and they are 100% support of the revised language in terms of its ability to preserve the immunity and just what you're talking about, the addict-to-addict situation where there's an overdose versus the basic hardcore criminal trafficker who are also out there doing these insidious crimes, and they should face an increased penalty.
No, that's fine. I still support it. So, okay. Just to be clear, if the rest of everyone does, that's fine. It's just I want there to be the record that's not unanimous.
So should we vote on this one? Is this one that we would take action on? So I'll make a motion to support it then.
Is there a second?
A question about the motion to support it as the recommended amendment is, or as without the amendment at the state? The chief is talking about some suggested amendments coming locally, which may not surface yet, which I really believe that my sense is of the local advocates is that they want it amended.
It'd be the one with the amendment, John, because that's what the chief has worked out with talking to our people.
I support the amendment. Okay. We don't even know what the amendment is, problem.
Yeah.
To me, I think we should vote on this first. If they come up with an amendment, then we would vote on that the next time or on Friday or whatever. But
what he's giving testimony, Dave, though, it is the one with the amendment. So if you're supporting him to testify the one with the amendment. That's the only clarification.
And isn't that what we're trying to do now to clarify if this is the majority view of the city commission of Fargo? So once again, I'll just stick with the original motion of the original draft.
Just to clarify, Chief, can you explain what are you supporting when you're out in Bismarck?
The bill with the revised language, just so that the revised language just makes it clear that there's no effect on the Good Samaritan immunity clause. So that's already been submitted to the representative. Again, just procedurally, I assume he'll submit that before testimony on Wednesday, as that's what I'll be talking about during my testimony.
Mission clear then, what we're voting on? Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Mayor, I need to be clear, I'm sorry. The motion was the unamended, wasn't it? So your motion is to vote for the discussion at the Bismarck without the suggested wording additions.
Mr. Pepcorn?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's not what he's testifying on. He's coming out and testifying on the amended motion. So you're not, when you're saying giving support, you're supporting the chief testifying. We've got dealers killing people, and we need to take care of them. And you're not helping the Good Samaritan here. You're helping the dealer who puts fentanyl in it and kills people.
How did Arlette, how did you vote?
Excuse me?
Did Arlette vote?
We voted on Days, which was the unamended motion.
No. Did you vote, Arlette?
No, I didn't.
So it's 2-2, so therefore he's not going. That's how this works. You need a majority to make this.
That was
move
on
out.
his motion.
Okay. Make another motion then.
Do I have another motion?
I move, Mayor, that we endorse and support the police chief's testimony that would reflect the amendments recommended by our local advocates from harm reduction in the state's attorney's office.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Further discussion? Roll call vote?
Strand?
Yes.
Preston?
Yes.
Gary?
No.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Mahoney?
Aye. Next one? Next day?
Thursday, I think there's just one hearing of interest, in my opinion, and that's House Bill 1222, which is a bill related to the reconstruction of non-conforming structures. And Nicole, I don't know if you're teed up for this one, but she had some observations last week that I found this really interesting because it has to do potentially with zoning designations. So
She's behind you.
sorry about that, Nicole, but thank you.
Yeah, I think at this point, we're still coordinating with the North Dakota APA. And at this point, we are not in support of this based on the local control of wanting to have the local control at the local level for non-conforming.
Okay. And Arlette, you had a 1414?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's on the list, so that's quite all right. I didn't see that.
Are we supporting it?
You know, I don't think at this point we have enough information to know one way or the other. It's on the Wednesday, if you want to get Wednesday down, whoever's, there we go. Yeah, we don't have a fiscal note on it yet, so I would say we just watch it until we get the full
Monitor it, yeah.
information.
Kent, do you want to explain what it is?
Yes, Commissioners, the intent of the bill is to provide some relief to very small retailers. And in the case of the bill, it's categorized as any retailer that sells at $100,000 or less. They would be able to collect the sales tax on those sales, but keep the money and not remit it to that. So $100,000 in sales times 5% would be about a $5,000 transfer, if you will, to small business. Arlette and I talked about this over the weekend. There is typically fiscal notes because this has a direct impact upon the state sales tax collections, and they in turn pool that money and rebate some of that back to us in the form of state aid. So our testimony was going to be that we oppose this
because it has a dilutionary effect on our sales tax. However, if you had empathy for the small businesses right now under COVID, you might feel differently. But in the past, we've categorically opposed all bills that have a dilutionary effect upon our sales tax collections because of the magnitude of the diversion and our infrastructure sales tax.
Mr. Chairman, if I could. In this particular case, I think it would be wise to watch this one and not oppose it or support it at this point, because we don't have a good sense, as far as I know, what the impact would be on us. And it would provide that gap support for those micro businesses that we have not been able to provide support locally to. So I think there's a reason to look at this one a little bit more closely.
Yeah, that's fine. If we want to change the position for opposed to just monitor it, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Very good. So monitor is okay with all the commissioners unless you want a motion to oppose or a motion to approve.
Is that one on this list? I haven't been able to find it. Is this the official list, Bruce? Sorry, I'm getting a little informal here.
You got a list there? Is that the official list of all the bills being considered?
No, that is just an administrator's talking points for tonight. The official list of all the bills is the 171 that we extracted out of the 500. That's the first thing we looked at. You want to pull that up, Ty?
That thing, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's something that I think would be really helpful, is to have one spreadsheet.
Yes.
It's got it all on it.
Okay.
And that's the one that keeps updated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back to Thursday, I think.
I think we're on to Friday.
Okay.
There's one bill of note that I wanted to talk about Friday, and that is House Bill 1419. This is similar to, it deals with infrastructure, but this is similar to a bill that was introduced last session, but it's been changed a little bit now to offer municipalities the option of utilizing a citywide utility fee for infrastructure maintenance or reconstruction of arterial roads. It doesn't require that you do that, but we met for about an hour and talked through this one this afternoon, and we would like to look at the possibilities of what that might be able to allow us to do.
It would allow us to end special assessments is what it allows us to do.
Yeah.
So I support it and hope everyone else does as well.
So it's a bill Bismarck has been looking at for several years to try to do $20 a month assessment on a utility fee to be a street tax. And that's just one of their avenues they've tried, but the state did not pass on it last time. So it sounds like, Bill, they're modifying it, Bruce, to be arterials and certain things rather than everything. So.
It's offered up as an optional financing measure, so we're really interested.
On the employee contributions to any PERS, is that increasing the rate they're taking? Is that what that is about?
When Kent's on his way up here, that would increase both the employer and the employee contribution to ND PERS because of actuarials, I believe, Kent.
Yeah, excuse me, Bruce, but I think that's a different bill. I believe this one just has to do with temporary employees. There's certain employees categorized at the state for pension purposes as temporary, and they're raising the contributions by about 5.12%. So we don't carry anybody in that category. I don't believe in the city's substructure, so we think it doesn't need to be even monitored at this point.
Very good. Any other action at the legislative update today? Are we okay? Commissioner Strand?
I just have one question for us to contemplate, and that is, we also have boards and commissions who may have some thoughts and advice and guidance, not only to us, but to their own legislators as well. So the Native American Commission or the Human Relations Commission, they may have some issues that they're really passionate and concerned about that may not even be on our radar. So let's just be open to our boards and commissions who are appointed to bring voice to their communities as we go forward.
Are we sending someone to support 1419? Is that the plan?
Which one is 1419?
That was the infrastructure?
We reviewed it today. We're considering submitting written testimony only, just not appearing in person, but submitting written testimony. But we have a little bit more forensic work to do on that. And we're looking at what would it mean. Right now, we have special assessment financing for everything. And if we went to a citywide utility fee in lieu of that, what does that look like? What does the citywide utility fee mean?
Yeah, and I think we don't need to know that answer right now. It's another tool that we can use if we use it.
It doesn't hurt us.
Doesn't hurt us to have it. Okay.
Okay, everybody ready? Okay, then we'll go on to item 34, application for abatement and refund of taxes, 4494 Fargo Doublewood Inn at 333 13th Avenue South, requesting a reduction from 7.9 million to 5 million. And Mike Spakowski to explain.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. This is a hotel located at 3333 13th Avenue South. And just as a recap from the last meeting, this is a mid-scale full-service hotel. The appellant was originally asking that the value be reduced to $5 million for 2018, but changed the request at the January 11th meeting to a request of $6,348,000, or about $53 per square foot. The item was tabled from the January 11th meeting to review an income approach that was submitted as support. Upon review of the submitted income approach, we do not think that it supports the requested value reduction. The reasons for this is that the approach is presenting the investment value and not the market value, and it is also no support for the income approach was presented. And here's the heart of the matter is that true and full value as defined by the statute means that we have to consider the market value, not the investment value. And the investment value can be different from the market value because of investor requirements such as levels of risk and return on investment and things like this. For appraisal purposes, market values are established by first having the data from the market and then analyzing the data to show the value. What has been presented here in this income approach is the data of the subject property itself, but no supporting evidence from comparable transactions showing market incomes, vacancy rates, or income and expense ratios. With no information of comparable properties, for verification, we cannot establish the income expenses are in the normal market range. Appraisal principles and common sense require that you use the data that you have to establish market values. Our office does not have the information needed to support or verify this type of income approach either, which is why we did not use it. For the purposes of mass appraisal, the assessor's office rarely uses this approach since when we send out our surveys, we are unable to get reliable information to verify that it meets the market conditions. Our office presented an income analysis only on exhibit number 8 for this write-up using a different income approach, which is called the gross income multiplier, which supports our value from market numbers. Again, this is for support only and was not used to establish the value. The 2018 value was $7,990,000, or about $66 per square foot. The median sales of 11 similar properties sold in the $82 per square foot range, and the median valuation of 20 similar properties is in the $91 per square foot range. And this is showing that the subject is on the low end of the valuations and is amongst the lowest throughout the city of comparable properties. Thus, the valuation does not appear unreasonable, arbitrary, or capricious. We have presented sales support from the market for our cost model, and as Mr. Rahm correctly pointed out at the last meeting, the sales method is recognized by all appraisal authorities and the state tax commissioner as one of the more accurate methods of estimating value. Due to the absence of market evidence for the presented income approach, we do not believe a reduction is supported. In view of the market evidence presented for support of our valuation, we recommend the denial of the appeal and to retain the 2018 value as certified. And I believe Mr. Ram is here.
Mr. Rabb?
Thank you. I'll be brief. I went through the numbers last time. I won't make you do it again. I want to thank staff for being willing to talk with us. We didn't come to an agreement, but I thought we had a good exchange of information. I'd like to respond to a couple points briefly. When Mr. Slanowski says there's no information provided, I think what he means is that we didn't provide information about other competitor hotels. We certainly provided information about our hotel. I'd love to be able to go to every other hotel owner in town and say, please give me all your expenses, but that's not going to happen. So we're not able to provide that. With respect to the idea that this presents the investment as opposed to the property, that is, if you recall our income approach, there's a capitalization rate at the end of it to determine how much somebody would pay to buy this income stream. That's reflected in the cap rate. If somebody disagreed with our cap rate, if I had heard, for example, we think it's wrong, we think it should be X or Y, we could talk about that, but I haven't heard that. What we heard essentially was if we can't prove the whole market, we shouldn't rely on income at all. We respectfully disagree with that. The best indication of the value of a particular property from an income perspective is the information for that property, which we've provided. Final point, the law is pretty clear. You don't have to pick our value or the existing value. The board is free to set, it's a recommendation from you, of course, but the board is free to set the value within the range of evidence presented. And so it would be possible for the commission to decide, for example, that you don't think we have it exactly right, but that we've provided enough information with respect to income that would suggest that the valuation is too high, and to select a value between the range presented. So again, I thank staff for working with us. I wish we were able to work it out. We couldn't, but with all due respect, we would ask that you reduce the assessment as we've requested. Thank you.
Do I have a motion?
Move the suggested motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the motion.
The motion is to deny the appraisal of the abatement or refund of taxes, that gives the number and the address, and retain the 2018 value.
Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd express some concern going forward into a year or two from now when we're looking at every hotel in town having a really significantly diminished business model. We hear from Charlie Johnson that it's maybe 38 to 50% occupancy. So my fear is that if that becomes our model, that all of a sudden we're using only the income model, we're going to have a gutting of our tax base with some of these business sectors. My guess is that market conditions actually translate into sales. So if somebody's buying it, they're going to buy it based on the market, on the income, and on the history and the comparables. So I'm hesitant to go down this path of allowing the abatement.
Mr. Preston?
Mike, is income approach ever used? Do you ever use that at all?
At this point, for our office's purposes, we never use the income approach, just simply because we do not get the information. We have sent out surveys at various points asking business owners to give us that information, and they're not forthcoming. This is normal. They just don't like to share their information with us. And so in order to use it, we would need a lot more support than we have. So we just don't go down that road right at this point.
But it is allowed by state law. That's why it's an issue here. Okay.
Yep. It's one of the 3 accepted approaches to value.
Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Gehrig?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. Okay,
Thank
you want
you
to
for your
keep going?
consideration.
Do you want to take a break, or do you want to keep, thank you. You want to keep going? Okay. Item 35, request for tax increment financing for the redevelopment of the property at 2301 University Drive South.
Thank you. Our process for tax increment financing is to first bring the general concept to the City Commission to see if you want staff to work on the project if you feel it's potentially eligible and it's something that you'd like us to look at. If it is, then one of the next steps is to send this to our financial advisor to do the but-for test to determine is the money needed for the project? Is it really that but-for test that would show whether or not they could do it without the TIF assistance? The current conditions of this Kmart site, it's an 11-acre site. There's a vacant Kmart building, about 90,000 square feet, and a Burger King on the property. A relatively low level of development for the size of the site. This proposed redevelopment does fit with many of the city's plans and objectives in our TIF policy. It would eliminate some blighted conditions. It's served by existing infrastructure. There's ability to provide some affordable housing within the overall development, and there could be significant tax base growth. I'll let the developers comment on the project a little bit before you take a motion. I should note I have received a few neighborhood concerns about traffic, and those would certainly be addressed in the future. This project would require rezoning, and so there'd be public hearings and notifications on that. In addition, there would be a public hearing prior to you taking any final action on that. Tim Gleason is here with Enclave Development, and Austin Morris is available online. They provided some, I don't know if you guys can, some additional slides. I don't know if those were able to be up or not, but Tim, do you want to here to answer any questions, or maybe tell us a little bit more about the project that would include commercial space and housing?
I think Austin's on the phone as well. Jim?
Yeah. Austin, do you want to take it?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is a really exciting project. We got acquainted with the project fall of the year prior to last. So we began concerted effort with what do we do with it? It's an excellent redevelopment opportunity in the city of Fargo on the University Drive corridor. A lot of the product in this area is
Mayor.
60s and 70s.
Mayor, I'm just having trouble understanding him.
Yeah, I am too.
There's some internet connection problem or something.
Austin, your voice is going in and out. Perhaps we can do it from inside here.
Thanks, Jim.
Maybe.
So we've been working on this development for about a year now, focusing on a retail redevelopment. The site located obviously on University Drive South. There's approximately 30,000 cars that travel this corridor per day. We looked at it from multiple different angles, ran a lot of different site plans. So currently up there, that is a picture I actually took today of the property. This is how it sat for the last 13 to 14 months since Kmart vacated the property. This is a really challenging redevelopment from the standpoint of big box stores vacating 90,000 to 120,000 square foot buildings across the country, right? So what do you do with these large 90,000 square foot box stores? How do you slice them up to use them, as well as it being built in the 60s? So Jim, if you want to go to the next slide. On the left, we have the existing use, 11.7 acres. The vacant Kmart building is just over 2 acres. Burger King is currently in operation. They would be willing to relocate or do something on the site. So we'd be proposing future uses. This would be allowed within a conditional use permit or rezoning of the property. Next slide, Jim, if you could. So yeah, so here's like a few potential site uses, and we have interested parties in all of these if we were able to get something going on this site. So some neighborhood commercial, a retail center, potentially inline retail, standalone building, multifamily housing, as well as office, potential grocer, and some single tenant pads. So, from our standpoint, it's an extremely difficult site with a blighted building on the property. It has surrounding infrastructure we would prefer to develop. This site, it's not every day you get a 11.7 acre site in the middle of the city of Fargo to redevelop. So if you have any questions, today we're here to obviously just to start the process to evaluate the potential for TIF on the site. So
As I looked at our TIF policy, this does meet many of the objectives that we have within that policy. We don't know on the but-for test, so that's my recommended
Jim,
motion.
Austin is online now, I guess. Do you want to say something, Austin?
I was off after just reconnect with IT, but I'm listening to
Yeah, Austin, we can't hear you.
Wonderful.
Austin, sorry, we can't hear you.
No, I'm good.
Sorry,
So,
Austin, it's not coming through.
you made a recommendation to this, we look for TIF financing. Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Commissioner Garrett?
Yeah, it does mean some of it. I agree that it's a blighted area. It's obviously an empty, big building. But to your point, it's in the middle of Fargo. And this is awesome. This is a big opportunity for somebody to do something really, really awesome there. And while it is blighted, and I agree with you on that, it's more apartments for a lot of it. And we said many years ago that we would stop subsidizing apartments, and that's almost exclusively what we're doing these days. We said a long time ago that we wouldn't, and this has since changed, when we approved the Black Building, no office buildings, no retail places. Well, this is, again, more of the same. It's more of that. Because it's not primary sector, which is the stated goal of these incentives, right? Primary sector, we bring it up all the time as ways to give money to these businesses. So it's not primary sector, it's apartments, it's office space, it's retail space. Those are things that we historically have not supported. So it's none of those things, and therefore we shouldn't do it. I hope you guys build something awesome there, and it's a great opportunity. I wish you all the best, but it's not right for our incentives.
Jim, does it meet the TIF policy?
I think it meets the TIF policy. We have the payment in lieu of taxes. In that particular policy, we did not generally provide a tax exemption for new, just general speculative office space or, retail or restaurants. So if new restaurant came to town and wanted a property tax exemption, it's not primary sector, we would not provide that. With the TIF, we've done both. Generally, they're non-primary sector. We're trying to clean up a blighted site, and that's the goal versus any kind of job creation. So Commissioner Garrick is right. In the pilot policy, we don't do it. In the TIF policy, we do it. If it's a blighted site that needs redevelopment.
Commissioner Strand?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question. Has this property changed ownership already?
I don't believe it has. The Kmart did not own the property. They were a longtime leasee. The company that leased it owns it is DFI Dakota. It's based in Georgia. I've been talking to them for the last, 6-7 years. They've known that at some point Kmart might leave the site, and so they've been looking at redevelopment concepts.
Mr. Chair, so this is just the preliminary round. And so this just gives us permission to go ahead and find out what the potential is. We vote again. This is just a preliminary. I agree with Tony. We don't need to subsidize apartments in South Fargo. The Go 2030, it was subsidizing housing in the downtown. That was what we were trying to do. We also want to subsidize, or we want to promote high wage jobs coming to Fargo. So that's our, from 30,000 feet, that's what we're focusing on. That's not what this is, clearly. But I do think it's good for us to proceed and find out what it is. I think that's part of what because if you want to have it sit stale for 20 years, we can make that happen very easily. Jim, we've got lots of projects we can go down the list. If you want to have something, then to me, at least that's part of our duty to see what is the potential there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Preston?
Jim, with this analysis, are the pilot dollars split out from the TIF so that we can see what the impact would be if it was just TIF versus both?
What our financial advisor would look at is what's the rate of return if we did not give them any TIF money.
Okay.
And what's the rate of return with the level of assistance. So there have been occasions when we might want to end up somewhere in between based on that rate of return. But, if the rate of return is, 2%, they're going to look for some other use of the property, maybe just use it as industrial storage until, the market changes. If it was 20%, then we would probably say you don't need all the TIF money, you need some, but not all of it.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just, I agree. I have some concerns and some questions about pilot being used. TIF, totally appropriate here, it seems to me. It's the pilot dollars that I question.
I think there's a mention of pilot in the letter, and we also use pilot for low-income housing. And so I think they're anticipating, in order to do low-income housing on this project, you would also need to have the pilot program for that particular housing project. Tim,
Commissioner Pepcorn?
Can I just add one more thing to make a long meeting even longer? So John talked a little bit about, he was concerned about the future. Man, I am so optimistic about our future, and I wish our apartment vacancy rates are I mean, we are full, and what's going to happen next year is the diversion is going to start. We are going to have a housing shortage like in Western North Dakota, and that's no joke. I'm not exaggerating. And so I'm very optimistic, John, about what's going to happen. We're going to have an economic boom, and then, good Lord, hopefully this pandemic goes away. I think we're going to be doing very well, and I think we're going to have a great, well, anything's better than 2020, but I think 2021 is going to be a great year for the city of Fargo. That ties in with the mayor's great presentation. So I'm optimistic, and I do think apartments, we're going to have a shortage, and that might sound laughable, but that's, I believe it's true. Thank you. I apologize for rambling on a long meeting.
Mayor, I just
Commissioner Strand?
a question for the developer. You're looking to buy this property. I'm not sure if you've agreed to buy it. Is your purchase of this property contingent upon getting TIF support from the city?
It is, yep, it is.
So does that mean we get to see the offer?
To
And
see
it's
the
public
market value offer,
information?
I believe it would be recorded on the warranty deed when we close on the property, so.
And it's about a $2.5 million TIF request? Is that about right, Jim?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I could make one more comment.
Mr. Preston?
You know, I fully understand this whole issue about using pilot dollars for affordable housing. The trouble is, we have no idea in this community what we need for affordable housing and how much we need. This comes up frequently with developments, and we don't have solid data on that, it seems to me.
You're right. Our last housing study was like 5 or 6 years ago. I've been busy with planning a little bit, trying to get that into the work program to do an update on the study. What I can tell you is that there's a long waiting list of elderly people trying to get onto the affordable housing list at the Fargo Housing Authority and other nonprofits. And even with the programs we have, I don't know that we'll ever, empty that waiting list.
But I would ask you, Jim, with that long list, do we know what kind of housing needs those are? Are we talking multifamily? Are we talking? Because this comes up with other single-family developments as well.
I think the longest lists are for the elderly.
And that's multifamily?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
We
that's
don't
what-
have numbers with it, is my argument.
Yeah, and that's what the Housing Authority provides. They don't have single-family housing. It's the low-income housing list. Beyond shelter, whenever they open up a new project, there's plenty of people to fill it.
Can you two take that up later then, or whatever, Commissioner Strand?
I think this is my last question. With this property, is there a history of a previous public investment with any tax breaks in the past?
There've been none in the 26 years I've been here, if I can tell you that.
It goes from a value of $5 million to ultimately $35 million where they got everything done?
Yeah,
At least that's what I read from this.
It'll be up to our city assessor what the value is, of course, but yeah, they're looking at investing that much in it.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call vote.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
No.
Gary?
No.
Mahoney?
Aye. Item 36, application for property tax exemption for improvements made to buildings. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Pepcorn?
Aye.
Gary?
Yes.
Preston?
Aye.
Strand?
Yes.
Mahoney?
Aye. You have my recommendations for appointments and reappointments to the following boards and commission, the Native American Commission and the Community Development Committee.
I make the recommendation, I make the motion to approve both appointments.
Second.
Second, any discussion? Roll call vote?
Strand,
Yes.
Preston,
Aye.
Gary,
Yes.
Pepcorn,
Aye.
Mahoney.
Aye. I have some news for the commission, which I think I have to share with you tonight because we're losing an important leader in our community. Mayor Judd has resigned as mayor and will be the judge. So he is now going to be a judge in the state of Minnesota, which I think will be fantastic for the state of Minnesota. And we very much appreciate his leadership in our community and what he has brought to our area. I regret he's the version chairman right now, which makes it hard because he was taking that with great glee, but it's quite an honor for him to get this. So, and John, any other business birthdays I missed?
Oh, unless on February 4th, you just want to reach out and call Michael Redlinger and say, hey, we're thinking of you today.
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, or adjourned. Thank you.